Welcome to Grief, Grace, and Gratitude. I'm your host, Rhonda Kemp. On this podcast, we will be sharing our grief journeys with one another. Each one of our guests will talk about the loved ones they've lost to overdose, as well as the impact of substance use disorder. As you listen, you could write down and share with us a question or discussion topic that you would like to see us include in our future episodes. Just as it says in the book of Psalms, chapter 34, verse 18, "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." My hope is to bring comfort to those who are crushed in spirit. As we talk about the shame of addiction and devastation of loss, we want you to learn how to survive and even thrive while navigating through the difficulty of grief.
Welcome, Cheryl. So happy to have Cheryl Juaire with us today from Massachusetts. Cheryl is someone I admire for all the accomplishments. She's been able to do great things in the pain and loss that she suffered. I'll let her tell her story, but I just have so much admiration for all she's accomplished to bring healing and support to people that have lost someone to overdose. So, Cheryl, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your grief journey.
Well, thank you, Rhonda. It's a pleasure to be on here with you. So, as Rhonda said, my name is Cheryl Juaire. I lost my son, Cory Merrill, to overdose on February 24th, 2011. And 10 years later, I lost my second son, Sean, on June 25th, 2021, to an overdose as well. He died from a mixture of cocaine and fentanyl, but I still consider that an overdose.
So after your son, go ahead.
When Cory died, he was my last of three kids, and he was a little on the spoiled side. My oldest kids, there was 8 years difference between him and my middle son. So he was really spoiled. When he was growing up, he became rebellious. And I believe it was after a hernia surgery when he was prescribed opioids. In his high school years, he kind of became rebellious. And I just thought he was experimenting with drugs, just like most people do in their high school, college years. But it was going beyond that. He ended up quitting school, and I was so disappointed in him. I would say to him, "Cory, I didn't raise my kids to be like that. Quit. Just quit. Everybody can quit. And, you've got a 4-month-old daughter at home. You're living in public housing. You're in food stamps. You're 23 years old. Grow up," and he would try to talk to me about his addiction. And I knew nothing about it. When I got that phone call on February 24th, it brought me to my knees because I had no idea the depths or that I was going to lose my child. Not in a million years did I think that. So for the next 3 years, I really suffered in my grief alone. I was a new Christian, probably 6 months new when Cory died. I just would scream out to God all the time, like, what am I going to do now? Do I trust you, or do I just do what my mind is telling me to and just die? Drink myself to death. Yeah. Just get rid of this pain. It was so bad.
And yeah. And when were you living in the same state when that happened, or had you, I thought in your story you had moved far away from Cory. Is that right?
Yeah. So my husband and I bought a business in Florida. Cory was still in Massachusetts because that's where we were. All of us were born and raised in Massachusetts. And he was 23 years old, so I figured it was safe for us to leave. We didn't have any minor children or anything. And so we went to Florida. So I kind of, followed. We kept in touch, of course. So I kind of, followed. And I know he was on probation, and that it was going through some troubles with his girlfriend. So I said to him, you know what, why don't you come down to Florida and spend some time, take a vacation, take like a week, and just me and you will go to the beach because it was in February too, so it was cold. And he had to jump through hoops to get probation to sign off on his papers, but he did it. He went to the courts, got probation, and they gave him permission to come visit me. The day before he was to come down, which was February 25th. So on February 24th, I was calling him all day long to make sure he had a ride to the airport. He wasn't answering me back. Around 10 o'clock that night, I called my oldest son, who is a police officer, and I said, we need to do a wellness check on Cory because he's not answering my, well, I didn't say do a wellness check because that was the last thing from my mind. But I'm like, we've got to find Cory because I don't know where he is, type thing. I didn't say do a wellness check because that was the last thing from my mind. But I'm like, we've got to find Cory because I don't know where he is, type thing. And so he sent some police officers over to where Cory was living because it was out of his district. They called him back and he called me, and they found Cory dead in his bed, alone. Just died with shame and all those things that I had to live with for a long time because I didn't understand the disease of addiction.
Yeah. Like so many parents, we are not equipped to deal with the disease of addiction until something like this happens. Sometimes it takes this to get our eyes opened.
Right.
So you lost your son and he was 23, you said?
He had a 4.5-month-old daughter. Yes. Her name was Faith. Yeah. Yeah. So for the next 3 years, I just, the best way I can explain it is I tell people I suffered in my grief. I decided not to go the route of killing myself or drinking myself to death. I decided to trust God, that he would see me through. And so I did everything that I was, we lived in the Bible Belt of the world. I would go to church all the time and get involved in groups and volunteer, but nobody had lost a child, let alone from addiction, so no one understood. I was flying home every 3 months to be close to his bones, is what I would tell people. I'd go to his grave and just needed to feel close to his bones and would cry and cry. Then I'd go back to Florida and try to put my bootstraps back on and live the Christian life. It was just so hard.
Yeah. Was there anyone that really helped you through that, or was it just the church in general?
It was just the church in general. I thank God I had the church at that time because there was nobody in Florida that I had met that had lost a child, let alone to addiction. So nobody knew that pain. And so we decided to move home.
And did that help once you got moved back, or did you find different support there?
It did help when I moved back home at the end of 2013. I knew the importance of staying involved in the church, so we found a church right away. I was online and met some moms who had lost their children from addiction. One of those moms had written down my Facebook name, and she reached out to me one night and said, hey, there's a bunch of us moms meeting at this restaurant, and we would love for you to join us. And this was months later, and I had said to my husband, I don't know what these moms are all about. I feel that I need to be there. It was an hour drive. So I went, and there were 7 of us moms sitting around that table who had all lost their children from substance use disorder. When we started sharing our grief stories, it was like the biggest weight had been lifted off of me and them because we all understood exactly what we were going through. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't alone in my grief. That night changed my life forever. It just changed my life.
Completely understand. Just being around people that can relate. That's the community you needed, and what a blessing you found them. And then you started doing some things in your pain that most people are astounded by what you were able to accomplish in starting a support group from there.
It wasn't my plan to do anything like that, but I was so excited. I came home from that meeting. And so I got all, we exchanged phone numbers and all that. And so we started a group messaging. And we were just blowing that out of the water. We were on 24/7, just talking and sharing. And like a couple of weeks later, there was a FedUp rally in Washington, D.C. And I was like, hey, there's this rally and who wants to go and bring pictures of our kids? And next thing you know, all 7 of us were on that airplane going down to Washington, D.C. I mean, we were just as close as could be. And when I got to Washington and we were at this rally, we met so many other people that had lost their kids. A lot of them were from Massachusetts, where we were from. So I just said, you know what? Sadly, we're growing, but maybe we need to start a group instead of just Messenger so that we can all chat. And so I started our Facebook group for parents that have lost their children to substance use disorder. 2 of the biggest things that the parents complained about, that we all learned about that evening that we went to dinner, was that over time, people forget our child's birthday and they forget the date they died. A lot of people will go to the funeral and wake, and then that's it. And then you go home and life goes on for you. But that's not how it works for us who have lost a child.
Right.
And so in order to join the group, I wanted them to share their child's name, their date of birth, and date of death, because on those dates, we recognize that mom or that dad. And that's become our in order to join.
That's your...
Yeah. And so many people are so grateful when they wake up and they see a picture of their child. And, today, let's keep this so-and-so mom in our thoughts and prayers as she goes through this day on her child's heavenly birthday, and then everybody will post something. And so that's what we started. And one of the good things was we all got together all the time. There was like 50 of us moms at one point going over to another mom's house. She had a beach house. Then we went to another mom's house and we played softball, like 60-year-old women all playing softball. It was kind of crazy. So, we laugh and we have joy and, because we have each other, and so that was so important.
That is just such a blessing. That's how God showed his love, is giving you that type of support. And then what you've done to grow that, it just blossomed from there. What was it, 2015 when you started that? 2015?
2015, yes. And then, like I said, because we did so many things together, word had just gotten out. And then so people from other states were asking to join the group. I didn't really want that to happen because there was a big organization out there like that. It was so personal to meet somebody that you just felt like you've known them all your life. It's just uncanny how that works. If there was somebody from Texas, we could chat, we could talk on the phone, but we'd never meet face to face. And that was so important to all of us. So then I started the national work because I wanted them all to have that connection that I found that God gave me.
What a blessing it is to thousands of people now that get to share on Facebook. And I'm sure in their groups, in the states, they do get together and support each other, which it's just such an important part of healing.
They all do the dates of birth and dates of death. So that's also a requirement to join each state, is to do the exact same thing we all do. So that became really important.
That's great that you had the actual energy to do that too. I'm sure that took a lot of your time.
It gave me a purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gave me a purpose, and that was God's plan. I remember my pastor in Florida had said to me one day, with all the different things I was going through besides losing my son, he said, "Cheryl, you remind me of Job." And he says, "I don't know what God's got planned for you, but he's got some big plans for you. I can tell you that. I'll never forget it." I make sure that I give God all the credit for everything.
Right. He called you to do it. And in that, I'm sure you found superpower strength to accomplish a lot, because when you're called to something like that, there's a way through it, even if you don't know how. I think God shows you. And, we call some of these things God winks. When you get a direct message from your son or God, either way, to carry on. You have used your pain for great things, for overdose awareness, for support for grievers, and even to get involved pretty in depth with the Purdue pharmacy lawsuit. I know you've been a part of that, to help bring some funds to rehabs and use that money for something good.
Mhm. Back in 2018, my attorney general here in Massachusetts had filed a lawsuit against the Sackler family. And I watched it on the news. Attorney General Maura Healey. I watched it on the news, and I was like, who were the Sacklers? What's Purdue? And what is all this about? I got a copy of the complaint. And when I read the complaint, the pieces just all came together. I have been hearing for years now the moms and dads' stories of how their child died, how some of them had their teeth extracted, the kids, and the parents would give them the prescription of OxyContin, or a sports injury or a surgery of some sort. And reading this complaint and seeing how it all started with the Sackler family, we had to do something. We planned a march in front of Purdue Pharmaceuticals on August 17th, 2018. And that was like our first march. I don't want to say demonstration, because, it wasn't a violent thing. There were 400 parents that came there that day with pictures of their kids, and we marched up and down the street. And I knew we had to do something, because we were just supporting each other in our grief, and that's fine. But we needed to do something, and everybody else felt the same way. Everybody needs a purpose. This began our purpose. There was an interview taking place in a New York courthouse to sit on the unsecured creditors committee for the Purdue bankruptcy. So we weren't able to. So I had an opportunity. There were hundreds of people that got interviewed that day by the U.S. Trustee's office. I was one chosen to sit on that committee. And that was a really difficult thing for me, because one of the things that they had said to me was that you now have a fiduciary duty to not speak to the public about what's going on throughout this bankruptcy. We were out protesting all over the place. We went to the Sackler Museum in Washington, the FDA. I mean, we were everywhere. And now all of a sudden I've got to tell these people, halt, we can't do this anymore, because now, but I thought, sitting on that committee, I'm going to bring the Sacklers down. I've got a foot in the door here, and I'm going to bring them down. But unfortunately, it didn't work that way. It's been a long process. It's been 5 years. That was in 2019 that I was chosen, and it's still ongoing. There's still not much I can say, but I mean, it did go all the way to the Supreme Court, December 5th, 2023. Yep. And then the verdict came out in June of 2024 that the bankruptcy plan was null and void. The bankruptcy plan was going to give the community $6.5 billion to use for abatement. It was to be used for harm reduction, recovery, employment. That's what that money was being used for. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court said third-party non-consensual releases are not legal. Where it's at is it's being negotiated through mediators, and I believe it's close to the end.
This bankruptcy, those things take so long. The hope is the money will be used for rehabs, education, and prevention.
That's what it's earmarked for. And then so it can't be used or abused as big tobacco had done. This has to be used for rehabs, employment, education, harm reduction, recovery, everything to do with the disease of addiction.
Yeah. And has that changed the way that the pharmaceuticals are distributed? I mean, do you think they've made some great strides in doctors not prescribing like they used to?
Yes, they have made great strides in doing that. Yes. But what that did was that opened up the cartels. And this is how fentanyl came in. They stopped prescribing like they were prescribing, so people couldn't get the drugs off the street anymore. And so the cartel said, what a great opportunity for us. They started making the pills with fentanyl in them in Mexico and shipping them here to the United States. That's where it's at now. I just watched for 60 minutes on this, and it was insane. And so did we do good? I don't know. There's so much left to be done.
And it has to be done at a grassroots level, you know, from most things that help people directly, it usually comes from people like you that are out there doing the hard stuff because of the pain you've been through. So I just thank you for all of that you're doing, and these groups that are there that will go on forever, I'm sure, on Facebook. So then we fast forward a little ways, and you're staying busy and you feel purpose, and then something else hits you pretty hard and you have another son that passes away.
Right. So while I was sitting on the unsecured credit committee, you know, it became real to the judges, the attorneys, to everybody involved, because I lost another son. There was a difference this time. I still had great faith, but I remember, you know, falling on my knees and saying, God, how can I do this again? I mean, like, I just kept remembering the pain I felt the first time. And I'm like, God, I can't live through that again. How am I ever going to get through this? And so this is how God got me through it. He actually, all the moms that I had become so close to here in Massachusetts showed up at my house once they heard that I lost Sean. They were at my house. They were there to make sure that I ate, that I had my slippers on, that I went to sleep, that I had everything I needed. And they were there at the wake, sitting in the corner. Now, they had all lost their kids, and they're at a wake of another kid, you know, and they're back in the corner just watching. They're just not letting me go for a second. When it was over, I said to them, why did you guys do that? I don't understand. And they said, Cheryl, you don't realize what you've done for us. Like, this is what we do for each other. And it was just normal for me to do these things. I just never expected it back. It was amazing. So my grief was not as heavy because of the help from them. And of course, from the Lord, who I always lean on. But yeah, that's how I managed that one. And people say to me all the time, you're so strong. You've lost 2 kids. You're so strong. And I'm like, no, I'm not strong, but he is.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so many people doing it alone. The grieving and the stigma of losing someone to an overdose just shames you and puts you a lot of times in an isolated place. And like you said, people don't talk about your son or your daughter. Um, I have close family members that still say, "I hate to bring up Lacey's name." I'm just so shocked that they hate to bring up her name because she's still with me all the time, and I know you know that feeling. They're not gone. You can't see them, but they're with you, and you feel their love and memories. But I just doing it alone is a very difficult journey to be on to heal, and so you've got your tribe, and that second time you were not prepared, but you had so much support. And that's, and if you go back years in our culture, people used to have strong community support. Bringing all that back is just so important. And so you continue after losing Sean, you continue to, did anything else happen after that?
Well, so in between the two, I just want to tell you that, because you had just mentioned so many still grieve alone. Um,
Uh-huh.
when we would find in the newspaper or hear of somebody local within Massachusetts that had just lost a child from addiction, because now they were starting to put it in their obituaries, we would show up at the wake for that mom, and we would let her know. We'd give her a card, and it had our information, and we'd let her know, you are not alone. And there'd be 5 or 6 of us moms that would go and say, we have all lost our child. We have stood where you are. And when you are ready, you just give us a call because we'll be there for you. We don't force anything on anybody. We say when you are ready. Some people are ready right away. Some people are ready to do action things right away. And some people, it might take a year or two. They just might need that time because, as you know, grief is different for everybody.
Yes. And a
So,
lot of times they will reach back out to you, though, I'm sure.
oh, they have. They've become part of us, and they become part of, of all the different things that we do. So, yeah.
And I know one of those things is you provide Christmas presents to the kids that have lost a parent to overdose. That's one of
So,
the big things you work on.
yeah, it's that time of year. So, so we're just getting buckled down. I've got parents reaching out to me saying, "Are you doing it again this year?" But yes, we absolutely are doing it again this year. I've seen too many of the children suffer because they've lost their mom or dad. I've heard so many stories of heartbreak. A little girl, 5 years old, sitting on her dad's lap, just so in love with her dad, and then to have him just gone. And that little girl just suffer and have to visit him at a grave. I could go on with story after story. And even my own granddaughter was 4.5 months old when she lost her dad. So there's no good story here in Massachusetts because we're so close. We decided to do a Christmas party for the children left behind. There's so many. We've been doing it. This is our 8th year. We do it at the Maynard Elks Club. We have Santa Claus come in on a fire truck, big, beautiful Christmas tree, face painting, cookie decorating. We have a balloon lady coming in this year. The kids love that. These kids are growing up together. The past 8 years, it's the same kids. We add new kids as they're newly lost. And they don't know why they're there, but they love it because they get a good present. Get to sit on Santa's lap, get pictures, and a big meal. And it's my favorite day of the year. As hard as it, the organizing and the presents and all that can be a little difficult, but at the end of the day, it's the most beautiful day of the year for me. Selfishly. I
And
say so.
changes. Yeah.
So, but
And
these
Faith, how did you do?
she's doing so.
Yeah,
She's doing
probably
good. She's 14. My granddaughter now is 14. Um, she's got one of her best friends. Her name is Faith, same name, And there's three of them. There's Bella, and she's 14. And those three girls met at this Christmas party years ago. And they've grown up together and become friends. And of course, now with the cell phones, they each have their cell phone. None of them live close to each other, but they see each other at the Christmas party every year. Yeah.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
So much good come out of something so horrific for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, having that purpose, like you said, it gets you out of bed. It keeps you pushing forward. And I'm sure you've seen so many God winks through it. Just that's how God gives you those blessings.
Yeah. I started to write them down, but then got lost because there's just so many God winks. Yeah.
So what should somebody do if they are struggling in really dark place and they don't know anyone to go to or even have a church to have comfort? What would your first or second 2 or 3 things that you could say to help him?
Well, I would suggest reaching out to a support group. There's many, many, many support organizations out there. And I will tell people, join our group. If it doesn't work for you, find another one because there's so many out there. But find one that works for you because it's so, so important. For me, I just started a grief support group, but it's faith-based. Can I talk about that?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
Or what I would suggest, faith. If you don't have faith, I know because of all these moms that I've become involved in, and I've seen some that are in those deep, dark places because they don't have faith. Meeting people from this amazing organization, Hope is Alive, I learned of a faith-based grief support group. I just felt like God was saying to me, okay, this is what you need to do next. This is going to be your next thing because there are so many moms out there that aren't believers or are believers but have lost their faith, never had faith, or have faith, but they're just in a deep, dark place. And I just thought that, if we could all come together, then maybe we could heal through our faith, because I know that's where the healing begins.
And we're so glad you found that Hope After Loss group. I know Chris Dara reached out to you, and you've been very involved for about a year now, hasn't it been? Started your group, 5 months ago or so?
Started it in June. I did the 13 lessons. The last one was going to be right the Monday before Thanksgiving. And that gives me time to start up in January again. This time I'm going to go full force because this time I just kind of walked on eggshells to see a dry run.
Yeah.
Yes, if you want to call it. But I'm ready. I'm ready for full force. So I'm going to do whatever I can to reach out to people, whether I go to all the different churches, because there's so many out there that need this.
And this is an in-person meeting that you have with Hope After Loss. We also offer Zoom calls for Hope After Loss. If you can't find an in-person meeting, it's a beginning support group. We're just starting. So there's a lot of need for it to spread, but you're doing a big part of that in your area. And so we'll leave those links too in the comments and the podcast notes so someone can learn about Hope After Loss and Hope is Alive Ministries.
Like I said, the faith part of it, because there is nothing out there. There are no grief support organizations, groups out there that are just faith-based. So this is huge.
Right. And without that, actually, I don't know where I would be, because I lost my daughter 10 years ago, and that was immediately my source of strength. And God was speaking to me all the time. I knew he was there. You don't feel alone when you have him guiding you and holding you together. So we want to spread that message that God is. Every lesson we do in Hope After Loss has a scripture-based lesson to understand how God's working in all of this pain that we go through. We're just amazed at your story, Cheryl, that did you feel like you were a great, were you pretty accomplished before you lost Cory? Were you a go-getter in most of your life? Is this your personality?
Yeah, I think so.
Nothing's going to stop you once you set your mind to do something.
Oh no. Oh no. So can I share with you about the license plates? Okay, so just give me 1 second because I have to get one. I should have been ready. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Sorry.
So that's the license plate, Massachusetts auto tag. Okay, overdose awareness at the bottom. And that was quite an undertaking, wasn't it?
Close. Dude, you talk about a go-getter. That was quite an undertaking. So, back in 2021, before Sean died, I applied to the Registry of Motor Vehicles to have these overdose awareness license plates. So that was 3.5 years ago. And the requirement to get it approved is 750 prepaid applications before they'll even talk to you. You have to be a nonprofit, which I am. And your logo has to be patented, which it is. Sean said to me in February of 2021 when I was approved to start getting the applications, Mom, the only thing I want for my birthday, which is in March, is for you to get those 750 applications. And so I said, piece of cake. I mean, him and I were competitive with everything we did together. He was involved with Teen Challenge. And so I said, oh, that's going to be a piece of cake. I'll have those. He said, that's all I want for my birthday. So I said, okay. Well, 3.5 years later, unfortunately, he passed in June of 2021. I was really driven to get those 750 because of him. I did tell him I would get them by his birthday, but I didn't tell him which birthday. So I still have time. We just reached the 750, and I'm in the process working with the registry to get the paperwork going within 6 to 8 months. Those are going to be on the road. They are going to be on our cars.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, so
every time one goes by, you're going to be proud
mm-hmm.
when you see that.
Yep. So
great.
And it's huge because, overdose awareness. I mean, it's, to help end the stigma, because we know what the stigma is all about, and one of the big things for us was to start up the conversation, because there might be a mom or dad out there who's lost a child who doesn't know about any organizations. And when they see that plate, they might come up to that person driving and say, hey, what's the significance of that plate for you? And you start a conversation, whether it's somebody that's lost or somebody in recovery. It's going to strike up a conversation.
Yes. I know your boys would be so proud of all the things you're accomplishing and just who you are as a mom. What were they like? If you could describe your sons, I know it would be hard to put it in a sentence, but tell us just a little bit about
Cory
and Cory.
Cory was he was spoiled. Yeah, he was the apple of my eye. He was just so spoiled. But he was he was a prankster. He loved to play jokes on people. I'll give you a quick example. We were driving in my car downtown for some paperwork, and it was a hot summer day. And I had the windows up and the air conditioner on. All of a sudden, I'm just sweating, profusely sweating. And I'm like, what is going on? The air conditioner's on. And I looked over at him, and he's kind of laughing. He had turned my heated seats on. So here I am, dripping because my heated seats were on. And he's laughing, and I just slapped him. I'm like, you little stinker. And so going to this point is, every now and then I'll be driving in my car in the middle of winter, in the middle of summer, and my seats will come on. The button won't show,
Seriously.
but the heat will come on, and I'll just say, "Thank you, honey. I know it's you, and thank you for that reminder that you're with me," and that just makes me feel so good. Sean was the middle child, the redheaded stepchild, middle child, whatever you want to call him, So, we butted heads as we were younger, but as he got older and got into recovery with Teen Challenge, and then worked at Teen Challenge, him and I got into the closest relationship, and I'm so grateful for those 5 years that we had together. We were competitive, but we did everything together to help each other. And he brought so many people to the Lord. All you have to do is look up Sean Merrill, Google Sean Merrill, and you'll see the accomplishments in the love that people had for him. Unfortunately, she didn't love himself enough. And then once he got a hold of him, he really got a hold of them. And
Yeah. It's Sean Merrill, Merrill, right?
correct. Yep. Cory
Yeah.
Merrill, and my oldest son is Robert Merrill. So
Do we do anything on special holidays to memorial? I know you're doing a lot to memorialize their life and make their life mean something, but is there a tradition you have around the holidays or anything that you and your other son do and your husband, them?
no, not really. I have the pictures up, and I don't do anything in particular, like I know some people do.
Just to talk a little bit about your husband and your son. Are they doing pretty well? I mean, that's such a huge part of your family is gone. It's just hard for
So
people to.
So my husband, he's not the father to my boys, but he was their stepdad. You know what I mean? Cory was 9 when him and I got married. It's affected him a lot too. And, my oldest son is a police officer. He works in the drug unit, so, but he takes the necessary steps that he needs to take for, counseling or whatever to take care of himself. He's lost both his brothers, and I can't feel what he feels. I can only imagine.
Yeah.
I think the holidays are difficult for him because he no longer has his brothers come over. It's difficult to visit for me as well.
That brother bond is such a strong bond and so important for your whole entire life. You should have your brothers with you. So yeah, that's a huge loss. I mean, I'm just learning about self-care through Hope After Loss. There are things you can do on those really hard days. Is there anything special you do for yourself if you're having a tough day?
It helps me to help others. I tell people all the time how selfish I am because it helps me when I'm helping somebody else. I try to grab a vacation now and then when I can, or a retreat, or something like that that I can just be, and that's good. But I've got to be going almost all the time. That's healthy for me.
And we're so grateful that you're a part of this community just for the people you're touching. Lots of support out there because of what you did and are doing. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Do you have a picture of what you'd like to be doing then, or just more of the same?
Someday I'd like to retire, but I don't know if God has that in my plans. I would like to see more faith-based grief support groups start up, and I'd like to help with that because I think they're so needed. I just feel like that's kind of a calling that God's placing on me now. Where that leaves team sharing, I'm not sure. And then I'm going to move to Oklahoma.
That would be wonderful. Yeah, around all of us. Kansas, Oklahoma.
I know. I just absolutely.
Are you serious? Are you serious about that?
I'm serious. I'm really serious. I have told my husband, if anything happens to you, he's even looked at real estate. So,
great.
So Massachusetts, like we're not the Bible Belt of the world. I do everything that I can to be involved in my church. But when you step outside the door, then you're back to the just regular, I don't know the word I'm
You
looking
don't feel the spirit,
the secular
the
life.
Holy Spirit. You're not
No,
right.
it's gone. You just all of a sudden starting to meet just regular people, and it's just so important to be around other believers. It's so
Yeah.
uplifting and so wonderful. So, it was sad that I left Florida because we had an amazing church. You'd go to the grocery store and people would say, "God bless you," as you were leaving, the cashiers and stuff. And I love that. And I would love seeing people praying over their meals in a restaurant. And it wasn't abnormal like it is here.
No,
So,
it is.
and
Yeah,
that's where I
very
want to be
composite.
with people like that.
That's great. And the retreats will bring so much awareness too. I know there's a retreat coming to Boston this next year for Hope After Loss. So we're going to try to get the word out there as much as we can. But anything else you want to leave with us before we have to say goodbye? I'd like to have you come back maybe in 3 months and talk about what your Hope After Loss group is doing, because I know you're going to build a pretty good size one out there.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll have a whole bunch of groups out here by then, because working on some people that I know are faith-based are interested. So that's good. For sure, the Purdue trial bankruptcy will be over. So I'll be able to share what's going on with that. Maybe they'll put the license plates on the road a little bit early. So, I'm sure I'll have lots to talk about.
You always do. You never disappoint. I'm always thrilled to see all the things you're accomplishing. And then do you still get involved with what was the rally you went to in D.C.? Was it Fed Up?
The Fed Up?
Is that Fed Up?
No, they've kind of been quiet. I'm not sure how active they are anymore. We're involved with activism here in Massachusetts. If there's, if there's something that's needed, they usually reach out to us in team sharing and say, "Hey, can you moms help?" Because they know that we have a voice. And we do. We have a voice for our children. And so we will go out with it.
You're big and bold when you have those numbers, and just the story. Everybody is amazed at the story of regular families that lose someone to fentanyl overdose or heroin overdose. And, my daughter looked like the perfect picture of health and happiness. And nobody would have understood why she started taking pain pills. Hers was after an operation too, but she used it as a party drug. It's hard to understand how normal people that don't come from certain backgrounds get in the trap of addiction. And that's something we need to learn more about. But I'm excited about your Christmas party. If we can do anything, we'll put some links in the notes and people can donate to bring more success to your Christmas party this year.
That would be great. We always take donations because we are a nonprofit, tax deductible.
It's a great way to participate. Not everybody can go out and start something big, but you can participate in what other people are doing. I thank you so much, Cheryl, for telling your story. I know it's not easy sometimes. And revisiting all of those days of the beginning of those losses, they're just hard to talk about sometimes, but I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
Keep on doing all the good stuff. We'll see you soon, and I will get back with you in about 3 months and see how you're doing.
All right, that sounds like a plan.
Talk to you later. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for joining us today and for being a part of the Grief, Grace, and Gratitude community. Remember, God has not forgotten you, your dreams, or your broken heart. Join us for our next episode, available wherever you listen to podcasts. To help us reach more people, please like, share, subscribe, leave a review, and follow us on social media. What will you trust God with today?